Uncertainty is one of the few experiences every human shares, yet most people spend their lives trying to escape it. We crave guarantees, clear paths, and predictable outcomes. But the truth is this: the moments that shape you the most are rarely certain. They are unclear, uncomfortable, and unfinished. Uncertainty is not a flaw in life design. It is the workshop where strength, wisdom, and character are built. Think about every meaningful transformation you've gone through. You didn't grow when everything was safe and obvious. You grew when you didn't know how it would work out, when the future felt fragile, when you had to take a step without seeing the entire staircase. Uncertainty forces you to engage with life actively instead of passively. It demands that you decide who you are before you know what you'll receive. When you are certain, you operate on autopilot. But when you are uncertain, you become alert. You listen more carefully. You question your assumptions. You learn to adapt. Uncertainty strips away illusion, control, and reveals what truly matters: your values, your resilience, your willingness to move forward anyway. It teaches you that confidence is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Uncertainty also humbles you. It reminds you that life is bigger than your plans and stronger than your expectations. This humility is not weakness, it is clarity. When you stop pretending you can control everything, you become flexible, you become teachable, and in that space, growth accelerates. Most importantly, uncertainty builds faith in yourself, in the process, and in the possibility you are being prepared, not punished. It trains you to trust your inner compass when external maps fail. Over time, you realize that uncertainty didn't block your path, it carved it. It didn't confuse you, it refined you. So don't rush to escape uncertainty. Walk through it with intention, because every unanswered question is shaping your patience, every delay is strengthening your discipline, and every unclear season is forming the version of you that certainty alone could never create. Uncertainty awakens growth because it disrupts comfort, and comfort is where growth quietly goes to sleep. When life feels predictable, you rely on habit instead of intention. You repeat what you already know, operate within familiar limits, and rarely question whether more is possible. But the moment uncertainty enters, everything changes. Your mind wakes up, your instincts sharpen. You are forced to confront what you believe about yourself and what you are capable of becoming. Growth does not begin with answers, it begins with questions. Uncertainty introduces questions you cannot ignore. What if this doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I succeed and become someone new? These questions stretch you internally. They push you to think deeper, prepare harder, and act with awareness instead of routine. In uncertain moments, you are no longer reacting automatically, you are choosing consciously. When the path is unclear, you cannot rely on certainty to carry you forward. You must develop skills, discipline, and inner strength. You learn to problem solve instead of panic. You learn to adapt instead of resist. Every uncertain situation demands growth because staying the same is no longer an option. Either you evolve or you remain stuck while life moves on. Uncertainty also reveals hidden potential. Strength you never needed before begins to surface because now it is required. Patience grows when outcomes take longer than expected. Courage develops when you move without guarantees. Wisdom forms when mistakes become teachers instead of enemies. These qualities are rarely formed in stable seasons. They are forged when stability disappears. Most importantly, uncertainty forces you to participate in your own becoming. You stop waiting for perfect conditions and start building capacity. You begin to realize that growth is not something that happens after uncertainty passes. It happens because uncertainty is present. Every unclear step stretches your mindset, expands your emotional range, and prepares you for levels of responsibility and opportunity you could not handle before. Uncertainty awakens awakens growth by refusing to let you remain who you were. It challenges your limits, dismantles old assumptions, and creates space for a stronger, wiser version of you to emerge, one decision, one adjustment, one uncertain step at a time. Uncertainty has a powerful way of uncovering what truly matters to you by stripping away distractions and false attachments. When life is stable, it's easy to claim many priorities at once: success, comfort, approval, security, recognition. But when uncertainty arrives, you no longer have the luxury of holding on to everything. Limited clarity and limited control force you to choose, and those choices reveal your real priorities more honestly than words ever could. In uncertain seasons, energy becomes precious. You cannot invest fully in everything, so you begin to notice where your focus naturally goes. What you protect when things are fragile shows what you value most. Do you protect your peace or your image? Do you protect your integrity or your comfort? Do you hold on to growth or cling to familiarity? Uncertainty does not ask what you say matters. It exposes what you act on when the pressure is real. Uncertainty also challenges the priorities you adopted without question. Goals that once felt important may suddenly feel empty when the future is unclear. External achievements lose their shine, and deeper values, meaning, purpose, relationships, faith, inner stability start to rise to the surface. This shift is not accidental. Uncertainty realigns you with what can endure when circumstances cannot be trusted. When outcomes are unknown, motivations are tested. Are you pursuing something because it aligns with your purpose, or because it once made sense in a safer season? Uncertainty forces honesty. It reveals whether your drive comes from fear, ego, or genuine conviction. This clarity may feel uncomfortable, but it is necessary. You cannot build a meaningful life on borrowed priorities. Uncertainty also teaches you to let go. Some things cannot travel with you in the next phase, and uncertainty makes that clear. Certain relationships, habits, or ambitions may drain you instead of strengthen you. When clarity is missing, attachment becomes heavier and release becomes wiser. What you are willing to release reveals how deeply you understand what truly sustains you. Over time, uncertainty reshapes your internal compass. Instead of chasing what looks impressive, you begin to honor what feels aligned. Instead of reacting to pressure, you respond to principle. Your priorities become less about control and more about intention, less about speed and more about direction. In this way, uncertainty does not confuse your life. It clarifies it by revealing what you cannot afford to lose and what you no longer need to carry. Uncertainty builds resilience by repeatedly placing you in situations where comfort is unavailable and strength must be developed. When outcomes are guaranteed, endurance is optional. But when nothing is certain, resilience becomes necessary. You are forced to stand, adjust, and continue even when reassurance is absent. This repeated exposure to the unknown trains you to remain steady under pressure rather than collapse beneath it. Resilience is not created in moments of ease. It is constructed through resistance. Uncertainty introduces emotional weight, doubt, fear, hesitation, and fatigue. Each time you carry that weight without giving up, you grow stronger internally. You learn that discomfort does not destroy you, it strengthens you. What once felt overwhelming gradually becomes manageable because you have survived it before. Uncertainty also teaches emotional endurance. When answers are delayed, you must sit with unresolved tension. This stretches your patience and builds mental stamina. Instead of reacting impulsively, you learn to regulate your emotions, to breathe through stress, and to remain functional even when clarity is missing. Over time, this emotional control becomes a quiet strength that carries you through future challenges. Resilience grows when you realize that setbacks are not signals to stop, but invitations to adapt. Uncertainty disrupts your original plans, but it also trains you to create new ones. You become flexible without losing direction. You learn to recover quickly, to rethink strategies, and to move forward without needing everything to be perfect. This adaptability is a core component of resilience. Uncertainty also reshapes your relationship with failure. When the path is unclear, mistakes are inevitable. Instead of fearing them, you begin to expect them and learn from them. Each recovery builds confidence, not because success is guaranteed, but because you trust your ability to respond. Resilience is born the moment you stop asking, will this work? And start asking, can I handle it if it doesn't? With time, uncertainty strengthens your inner foundation. You no longer depend entirely on external stability for peace. You learn to create stability within yourself through discipline, perspective, and self-trust. This internal stability does not eliminate uncertainty, but it ensures that uncertainty no longer controls you. Every uncertain season becomes that you can endure, adapt, continue forward regardless of how unclear the road ahead may be. Uncertainty develops adaptability by forcing you to move without rigid expectations. When life follows a predictable pattern, there is little need to adjust. You rely on plans, routines, and assumptions that feel secure. But when uncertainty disrupts those structures, you are compelled to respond in real time. This constant adjustment trains you to become flexible rather than fragile. Adaptability begins when you accept that change is not a threat, but a condition of growth. Uncertainty removes the illusion that one plan, one method, or one mindset will always work. As circumstances shift, you learn to observe, assess, and respond instead of resisting what is happening. This mental flexibility allows you to stay engaged rather than overwhelmed. In uncertain moments, adaptability teaches you to separate direction from strategy. Your purpose may remain the same, but the path toward it must evolve. You learn to pivot without losing identity, to revise plans without abandoning vision. This skill is essential because life rarely unfolds exactly as imagined. Those who adapt remain effective even when conditions are unstable. Uncertainty also sharpens situational awareness. When outcomes are unknown, you pay closer attention. You listen more carefully, notice subtle changes, and respond with intention. Adaptability grows through this heightened awareness. You become less reactive and more responsive, choosing actions based on reality rather than expectation. Adaptability strengthens confidence in your ability to learn. And when certainty disappears, you must acquire new skills, new perspectives, and new approaches. Each adjustment becomes proof that you are capable of growth beyond your previous limits. You stop fearing change because you have learned how to navigate it. Over time, uncertainty transforms adaptability into a mindset rather than a reaction. You no longer wait for perfect conditions before acting. You understand that progress is made through continuous adjustment, not flawless execution. This ability to evolve, recalibrate, and move forward under changing circumstances becomes one of your greatest strengths, allowing you to remain effective, relevant, and grounded no matter how unpredictable life becomes. Uncertainty sharpens decision-making by removing the comfort of guaranteed outcomes. When results are predictable, decisions are often majorly guided by habit or external approval. But when the future is unclear, every choice carries weight. You can no longer rely on certainty to validate your actions, so you must rely on judgment, awareness, and responsibility. This pressure refines the way you think and choose. In uncertain conditions, you learn to gather information without becoming paralyzed by it. You recognize that waiting for complete clarity often means missing critical opportunities. Decision-making becomes an active process of weighing risks, considering consequences, and acting with incomplete data. This strengthens your ability to move forward thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Uncertainty also forces you to decide based on values instead of guarantees. When success is not assured, the question shifts from will this work to is this right? You begin to evaluate choices through integrity, purpose, and long-term alignment. This value-based decision-making creates internal consistency, allowing you to stand by your choices even when external validation is absent. Through uncertainty, you develop discernment. Not every option deserves equal attention, and not every voice deserves equal influence. You learn to filter advice, recognize distractions, and focus on what truly serves your growth. This discernment is sharpened by experience, by making choices, observing outcomes, and adjusting accordingly. Uncertainty also builds decisiveness. Indecision often comes from fear of making the wrong choice. But repeated exposure to uncertainty teaches you that no decision is completely risk-free. You realize that stagnation is also a decision, often with greater consequences than action. Over time, you become more comfortable choosing, committing, and taking responsibility for the results. As decision-making sharpens, confidence grows, not because outcomes are predictable, because you trust your ability to choose wisely under pressure. You understand that clarity often follows action, not the other way around. Each decision made in uncertainty strengthens your judgment, deepens your self-trust, and prepares you to lead yourself and others through complex and unpredictable situations. Uncertainty exposes false control by dismantling the belief that you can predict, manage, or secure every outcome. In stable seasons, it is easy to assume that careful planning equals guaranteed results. You begin to believe that if you do everything right, life will respond accordingly. Uncertainty interrupts this illusion. It introduces variables you cannot manage and outcomes you cannot force, revealing the limits of your control. When false control is exposed, discomfort often follows. You may feel anxious, frustrated, or resistant because the strategies that once made you feel safe no longer work. This emotional response is not weakness, it is awareness. And you are confronting the reality that control was never absolute, it was conditional. Uncertainty brings this truth to the surface so you can grow beyond it. As control loosens, humility develops. You begin to understand that effort and intention matter, but they do not guarantee results. This realization does not make you passive, it makes you realistic. You shift from trying to dominate circumstances to learning how to engage with them wisely. Humility allows you to adapt instead of forcing outcomes that no longer align. Uncertainty also redefines responsibility. You learn to focus on what is within your influence, your attitude, discipline, preparation, and response, rather than obsessing over what is beyond. This distinction is freeing. Energy once wasted on control is redirected toward growth, clarity, and resilience. You become more effective by doing less forceful managing and more intentional living. False control often hides fear, the fear of failure, loss, or vulnerability. Uncertainty exposes this fear and invites you to face it honestly. When you stop pretending you can control everything, you gain emotional freedom. You no longer measure your worth by outcomes you cannot command. Instead, you measure it by character, effort, and integrity. Over time, uncertainty replaces false control with grounded confidence. You learn that strength is not found in certainty, but in steadiness. You trust yourself to respond, recover, and continue even when life refuses to follow your script. This shift does not weaken you. It stabilizes you by anchoring your confidence in who you are, not in what you can control. Uncertainty trains patience by placing you in seasons where answers are delayed and progress feels slow. In a world conditioned for speed and instant results, uncertainty forces you to wait without clear timelines. This waiting is uncomfortable, but is deeply formative. It teaches you how to remain steady when movement is limited and outcomes are not immediately visible. Patience is not passive, it is disciplined endurance. Uncertainty demands that you continue showing up even when feedback is absent. You learn to work without applause, to prepare without recognition, and to believe without confirmation. Each day you persist in uncertainty, your capacity to endure grows stronger. Through uncertainty, patience reshapes your relationship with time. You begin to understand that growth cannot be rushed and that some processes unfold only through consistency and trust. When results take longer than expected, you learn to manage frustration instead of being ruled by it. This emotional regulation is a powerful form of maturity. Uncertainty also teaches patience with yourself. When direction is unclear, mistakes are more likely. Instead of harsh self-judgment, you learn to allow space for learning and adjustment. Patience becomes self-compassion, the ability to keep moving forward without demanding perfection from yourself. As patience develops, your reactions slow and your responses deepen. You stop chasing quick fixes and start valuing sustainable progress. Uncertainty trains you to wait without quitting, to pause without losing purpose, and to endure without becoming bitter. Over time, patience becomes a stabilizing force within you. You no longer panic when timelines shift or answers delay. You trust that preparation is happening even when progress is not obvious. This inner calm allows you to remain focused, grounded, and consistent regardless of how long clarity takes to arrive. Uncertainty strengthens inner trust by removing external assurances and forcing you to listen inward. When life is predictable, you often depend on systems, opinions, and outcomes to guide your confidence. But when certainty disappears, those external supports weaken. In their absence, you are compelled to rely on your judgment, instincts, and values. This is where inner trust begins to form. Inner trust grows when you make choices without knowing how they will turn out and still commit fully to them. Each decision made in uncertainty becomes an act of self-belief. You learn that even if the result is not what you hoped for, you can handle the consequences. This realization builds confidence rooted not in success, but in capability. Uncertainty also teaches you to distinguish your own voice from noise. When answers are unclear, advice often becomes louder and more conflicted. You begin to notice which voices align with your values and which create confusion. Over time, you stop outsourcing your direction and start honoring your inner compass. This discernment strengthens trust in your own perspective. As inner trust develops, fear loses its authority. You may still feel afraid, but fear no longer dictates your actions. You understand that discomfort is not a warning sign. It is often a sign of growth. Trusting yourself means moving forward even when doubt is present, knowing that clarity often comes through action. Uncertainty also deepens self-connection. You become more aware of your limits, strengths, and patterns. Instead of reacting automatically, you respond intentionally. This self-awareness reinforces trust because you know yourself better, including how you recover, adapt, and over time, uncertainty transforms inner trust into a stable foundation. You no longer need constant reassurance to proceed. You move with quiet confidence, grounded in the knowledge that you can navigate what comes next, even if you cannot predict it. This self-trust becomes a guiding force, allowing you to remain centered and decisive in the face of ongoing unpredictability. Uncertainty fuels creativity by disrupting familiar patterns and forcing you to think beyond what has always worked. When outcomes are predictable, creativity often becomes optional. You rely on routines, proven formulas, and established methods. But when uncertainty removes those guarantees, creativity becomes essential. You must imagine new possibilities because the old ones no longer provide security. Creativity thrives when there is no clear answer. Uncertainty opens mental space by breaking rigid expectations. Instead of asking, what is the correct way? You begin asking, what could work? This shift expands your thinking and encourages exploration. Ideas that once felt impractical or risky begin to feel necessary. In uncertain conditions, limitations become catalysts. Fewer resources, unclear direction, or changing circumstances push you to innovate. You learn to combine ideas, reframe problems, and discover solutions that would never emerge in stable environments. Creativity grows because constraint demands imagination. Uncertainty also frees you from perfectionism. When there is no guaranteed outcome, you stop waiting for flawless execution. You experiment, test, and adjust. Mistakes become part of the creative process rather than evidence of failure. This openness allows ideas to evolve instead of being abandoned too early. As creativity develops, you become more comfortable with ambiguity. You learn to sit with unanswered questions and allow insight to unfold over time. This patience with the unknown deepens your creative capacity, making you more receptive to inspiration and insight. Over time, uncertainty transforms creativity into a problem-solving mindset. You stop seeing obstacles as dead ends and start seeing them as invitations to invent. This creative resilience enables you to navigate complexity with originality, resourcefulness, and confidence, turning unpredictable situations into opportunities for meaningful innovation. Uncertainty prepares you for leadership by placing you in situations where guidance, decision-making, and influence are required without clear instructions. Leaders are rarely forged in times of ease, certainty. Leadership emerges when the path is unclear, stakes are high, and the outcome is not guaranteed. In these moments, you are forced to step forward, make choices, and inspire others without having all the answers. Leadership in uncertainty teaches you to act with intention rather than react out of fear. You learn that direction is more important than perfection. When others look to you for guidance, your ability to remain calm, decisive, and composed under pressure becomes a model for resilience. Uncertainty trains you to carry responsibility not by relying on external validation, but by trusting your judgment and values. In uncertain times, you also learn empathy, a key trait for effective leadership. You experience firsthand the discomfort, confusion, and stress that others feel when outcomes are unknown. This awareness allows you to support and guide people more thoughtfully, to anticipate challenges, and to respond to their needs with patience and clarity. Leaders who understand uncertainty can lead with humility and compassion rather than authority alone. Uncertainty develops strategic thinking. When the future is unclear, you cannot rely on linear plans. You must consider multiple scenarios, anticipate risks, and adapt strategies quickly. This ability to pivot and make informed decisions under pressure is essential for leadership, as it ensures that you remain effective even when circumstances shift unexpectedly. It also builds confidence in delegation. You recognize that you cannot control every detail, and that trusting capable team members to act independently is necessary for progress. This trust strengthens relationships, fosters collaboration, and encourages collective problem solving, hallmarks of strong leadership. Furthermore, uncertainty teaches vision. Leaders in unpredictable environments must look beyond immediate chaos and focus on long-term goals. You learn to maintain perspective, to inspire hope, and to guide others toward meaningful outcomes even when the path forward is not obvious. Through repeated exposure to the unknown, you cultivate courage, resilience, empathy, strategic thinking, adaptability, and vision, all qualities that define leaders who can not only survive uncertainty, but thrive within it. The experiences you face in uncertain conditions become the training ground where leadership is forged, tested, and strengthened, preparing you to navigate challenges and inspire others no matter what lies ahead. Uncertainty deepens self-awareness by holding up a mirror to your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in ways that comfort never can. When life is predictable, it's easy to operate on autopilot, to follow routines, and to assume you understand yourself fully. But when the path is unclear, every reaction, hesitation, and choice becomes a reflection of your inner state, revealing strengths, weaknesses, biases, and hidden desires that were previously unnoticed. In uncertain moments, you are confronted with your fears, doubts, and insecurities. These feelings rise to the surface because the usual distractions or assurances are gone. You notice how you respond under pressure, whether with patience, frustration, courage, or avoidance. Each of these responses provides insight into your character, your emotional triggers, and your patterns of thinking. This awareness is the foundation for growth because you cannot improve what you do not recognize. Uncertainty also exposes your true motivations. When outcomes are not guaranteed, it becomes clear why you pursue certain goals goals or resist certain changes? Are your actions driven by external validation, comfort, or genuine purpose? By observing your decisions under ambiguous conditions, you start to differentiate between what truly matters to you and what you've been conditioned to pursue. Furthermore, uncertainty reveals how adaptable and resilient you really are. By noticing how you navigate ambiguity, you can identify your coping strategies, your areas for improvement, and the inner resources you can rely on. You begin to understand where your strengths lie and where growth is still needed. As self-awareness deepens, you develop emotional intelligence. You become more attuned to your feelings, more empathetic toward others experiencing uncertainty, and better at regulating your reactions. You start recognizing when fear or doubt is influencing your choices, which allows you to respond intentionally rather than react impulsively. Over time, uncertainty transforms self-awareness from a passive understanding into active insight. You begin to anticipate your reactions, understand your motivations, and act in alignment with your values, even in unclear circumstances. This heightened self-awareness not only strengthens your decision-making in relationships, but also becomes a compass guiding you through life's unpredictable moments with clarity, confidence, and authenticity. Uncertainty separates purpose from pressure by forcing you to examine what you do and whether your actions are driven by meaning or by external expectations. In stable conditions, it's easy to confuse business or achievement with purpose. You may push forward simply because deadlines, social expectations, or perceived obligations demand it. But when life becomes uncertain, those pressures often fade, leaving only the core motivations that truly drive you. When outcomes are unclear, you begin to question the reasons behind your choices. Are you pursuing a goal because it aligns with your vision for life, or because it feels urgent, competitive, or expected? Uncertainty forces this internal evaluation because external validation is no longer guaranteed. Without the safety net of predictable results, only purposeful action sustains momentum. Uncertainty also exposes where you may have been overextending yourself. When the path is unclear, it becomes obvious which efforts are fueled by stress, fear, or obligation rather than by passion and conviction. These realizations are often uncomfortable but necessary because they guide you toward trimming away what is unnecessary and focusing on what is essential. By distinguishing purpose from pressure, you learn to act with intentionality rather than reaction. Every choice is filtered through the lens of, does this align with my true goals and values? Instead of, will this meet expectations? This shift allows you to conserve energy for what genuinely matters, reducing wasted effort on tasks or ambitions that do not serve your deeper mission. Uncertainty also teaches resilience in pursuit of purpose. When outcomes are unknown, the pressure to perform or succeed intensifies, but purpose provides a compass. Instead of being overwhelmed by external demands, you can stay grounded in your principles and values. Your sense of direction becomes internal rather than dependent on recognition, reward, or control. Over time, this separation strengthens clarity and focus. You no longer chase opportunities simply because they appear urgent or appealing. You learn to prioritize meaning over motion and intentionality over reaction. Uncertainty transforms pressure into insight, helping you act from alignment rather than obligation, and ensuring that the energy you invest builds lasting significance rather than temporary achievement. As we come to the close of this reflection, remember, this uncertainty is not your enemy, it is life's greatest teacher. Every moment of doubt, every unanswered question, every path that seems unclear is shaping you in ways certainty never could. It awakens your growth, reveals your priorities, strengthens resilience, sharpens decision-making, and builds the inner trust and adaptability you need to thrive. The unknown forces you to confront fear, test your patience, and deepen self-awareness. It separates purpose from pressure and challenges you to step into courage before outcomes are guaranteed. Every uncertain step you take is a deliberate rehearsal for a stronger, wiser, and more capable version of yourself. So embrace the uncertainty. Walk boldly into the spaces where answers are hidden, where outcomes are unguaranteed, and where clarity feels distant. Trust the process, trust yourself, and trust that each challenge, each pause, and each moment of ambiguity is preparing you for something greater than you could imagine. Remember, it is in the fog of the unknown that character is forged, courage is awakened, and potential becomes reality. Uncertainty does not weaken you. It shapes you, molds you, and equips you to face life with strength, wisdom, and unwavering confidence.